Stuka Joe here. Today we'll be taking a look at this game, Castelnuovo 1539. We'll look at the game's components, victory conditions, setup, and even some gameplay. So, let's get this thing rolling. Castelnuovo 1539 is a game designed by Francisco Ronco to be published by Draco Ideas through a Kickstarter campaign. This is the story of the Spanish defenders of the Albanian village of Castelnuovo in 1539, surrounded by massive Turkish forces engaged in open trench warfare for more than a month. In this game, the Spanish will lose the city. The question is, at what cost for the Turks? The game includes one mounted map board, 16 six-sided dice. There's 72 poker-sized command cards, 36 for each side. There are 50 wooden square blocks that represent the units of the Spanish and Ottoman forces. The 6 round wooden blocks represent fleets and leaders of both armies. There's 13 red wooden markers that represent the walls of Castelnuovo. The 8 red angular wooden markers represent Spanish bastions that were deployed around Castelnuovo. There's 5 wooden cannons, 2 in red for the Spanish and 3 in green for the Ottomans. The 6 red wooden cubes represent Spanish chevaux de frise, and the 10 green wooden markers represent the Ottomans' trenches. The map board shows the fortified city of Castelnuovo and its surroundings, and it is organized into areas. City areas are outlined in red with wall positions around them. There's 4 inner areas of the city, and these are bordered in purple. Clear terrain areas have a green border, and rough terrain areas have a brown border. Each area on the map has an altitude indicator, which is a black number. And this ranges from 0, the lowest, which is sea level, to 4, which is the highest, which represents mountain level. And altitude has an effect on fire combat between units in different areas. The wall areas around Castelnuovo have resistance values of 1, 2, or 3, and these are indicated inside a blast symbol. In addition, the Spanish have 4 bastions that begin with a resistance level of 2. This resistance level decreases every time that the area with the wall or bastion receives a hit by artillery. And whenever it reaches 0, the Turks can enter the area and engage the Spanish defenders in melee combat. This is a card-driven game, and in this game, each player has his own deck of command cards. And as they draw cards and play cards, a face-up discard pile is created for each of the sides. There are 5 types of cards in the game. Action cards in red, order cards in green, combat cards in yellow, reaction cards in blue, and immediate effect event cards in purple. Some of the command cards belong to 2 categories, and you can play them as one or the other, but not both. The game also includes 6-sided dice, which is used to resolve combat. And in this game, after applying all modifiers, any results of 5 or more are considered successful hits. The military units for each side in this game are represented by wooden blocks. On the Ottoman side, there's 10 blocks of Janissaries, 16 blocks of Azab, these are conscript infantry, and 6 blocks of Sipahi, this is Ottoman cavalry. On the Spanish side, There's 9 blocks of arquebusiers, 6 blocks of pikemen, and 1 block of Albanian cavalry. There's also round wooden pieces that represent various leaders in the game. For the Spanish, the commander of the force, Sarmiento, and on the Ottoman side, Barbarossa, which commands the Turkish navy, Agi, which commands the Janissaries, and Ulema, who arrives at the end of turn 2 with the bulk of the Ottoman forces. There's also 2 round markers that represent the Turkish fleet and also serve as artillery batteries in the game for the Turks. Now let's place the wall markers. We start with the victory space that has the 2 on the left-hand side. Then we place 1, another one. In the citadel space, 3, then 1. And in the remaining victory space, go 2, 1, 1, and the final wall marker. We see the map without the wall markers, and here we see the map with them already set up. Now we place the 4 Spanish bastions. They can't be placed in any space in Castelnuovo or its walls. First one goes in a coastal space with an elevation of 1. The next one high in the mountains, elevation of 4, 2 areas away from Castelnuovo. The next one right next to Castelnuovo on the other side with an elevation of 3. And the last one on that same side, coastal area, elevation of 1, 3 areas away from Castelnuovo. Let's take a look at how the Spanish ended up being set up. We have the bastion to the west, 2 units. One is a cavalry unit. Another one is a pikeman unit. The pikemen can't make it in one move back to Castelnuovo. They have movement allowance of 2. They need at least 2 moves. Here in Castelnuovo, in the number 2 walled victory space, there's 2 blocks adjacent. To that is an arquebusier with an artillery battery. And here we see this space adjacent to Castelnuovo with good elevation, elevation 3. We have Sarmiento with 2 blocks. And inside the city, in the remaining walls, there's 1 block per walled space. And we see that the Spanish even have an artillery piece pointing to the valley on the eastern side. And there they have 2 blocks in the coastal area with an elevation of 1. These blocks are 3 areas away from Castelnuovo. And then 2 blocks in the mountainous area, which is 2 areas away from Castelnuovo. There's going to be Ottoman units coming in from the sea, as well as coming in from the mountains. And a huge army will be approaching, starting on turn 2, at the end of turn 2, from these mountainous areas and moving closer to the town. And Spanish units cannot be rebuilt. Once they are eliminated, they're gone for good. Note that at the beginning of the game, all Spanish forces begin on the map, and a small force of 4 assault blocks and a fleet marker begin the game in any sea area. Later, at the end of turn 1, the bulk of the Ottoman forces enter the map. 10 blocks of Janissaries, 6 of Assab infantry, and the leaders Agi, Barbarossa, and a fleet marker. Then at the end of turn 2, the remaining forces, 6 blocks of cavalry and 6 blocks of Assab infantry under the command of Ulema, enter the board in the northern edge. Now, each of the players deals to himself 4 cards. Spanish pull out 4 cards. And we deal 4 cards to the Turks. Let's take a look at the initial Spanish hand. They got 2 pair of cards, 2 counterattack cards. These cards are dual purpose. They can be used during the Spanish turn as a regular attack card to move 2 with infantry and 4 with cavalry and initiate combat. But they can also be used after a Turkish attack to do the same thing. And there's 2 of these counterattack cards. Then the Spanish also have 2 fire devices cards. These are combat cards that allow the Spanish to attack with the card before combat is resolved. But there's some requirements that it can only be played inside or adjacent to a zone with a wall or a bastion. Let's take a look at the Turkish hand. They also drew 2 counterattack cards they can use as a regular attack card or after a Spanish attack. They also drew a fire device card, but this fire device card is dual purpose. In the alternative, they can use it to build 1 trench in a clear terrain space, and that costs 1 trench point, or to deploy or move 1 of their batteries, and they need to do that in order to destroy the walls of Castelnuovo before assaulting these walled spaces. And the Turks drew this civilians card. There's only 1 in the deck. This is a very important card. To win the game, the Turks have to capture the 3 walled areas that have the resistance level in red. But if they play the civilians card, the civilians block is placed in any of these victory walled areas. And that means that the Turks then only have to capture 2 instead of 3 areas to win the game. So this card makes it a lot easier for the Turks to win. So the Spanish really have to fight out and these victory areas and not let the Turks conquer them, because you don't know, if you're the Spanish player, if they have that civilian card. And we placed a Turkish casualty marker in the 0 space of the casualty track. Now the Turks place 4 Asab units and 1 of their fleet markers in any of the 5 sea areas on the map. We're taking a look at the game from the Turkish perspective. So Turk doesn't know which blocks are what. There's 5 areas, and the Turks decide to place the blocks in the area shown here. Let's talk about the victory conditions in the game, but before we do so, note that in this game, there's no turn limit. The game ends immediately and victory is declared if any of the following things happen. When the last Spanish block is eliminated, in that case, the Turks win the game. If the Turks capture all 3 victory point walled areas, or they capture the remaining 2 after having played the civilians card, the Turks win the game. The only way the Spanish win the game is if the Turkish casualty track reaches level 12. And the Turkish casualty track increases by 1 for each block that they lose, including a leader block, and also for each instance in which the Turks declare an assault round. This game is played in rounds, and each round has 3 phases. First, the Ottoman action phase, followed by the Spanish action phase, and finally, the reinforcement phase. And when we talk about the reinforcement phase, it's only reinforcements for the Ottomans. There's 2 types of rounds in this game, and it is the Ottoman player who selects the type of round that will be played next, and he does that at the end of the Spanish action phase. There are siege rounds that represent 3 to 4 days of real time, and here both players refill their hands with 4 cards at the end of each of the player's action phase. But there's also assault rounds, and these represent 1 day of intense combat. Here, each player will have a 7-card hand, and each time the Ottoman player declares an assault round, the marker on the Ottoman casualty track advances 1 space. So what happens during an action phase? During an action phase, a player can either play cards from his hand or rest. If a player plays cards, the player plays actions or order cards one by one, and the opposing player may play reaction cards from his hand. And if combat occurs, each of the sides may play combat cards. If a player decides to rest his army, no cards are played, and a player may discard any cards that he wishes. And if it is the Ottoman player who is resting, the Ottoman player places all of his Asab and Sipahi blocks on the board at full strength. But this can only be done during a siege round. This example, it is the Ottomans' action phase, and they play an orders card, a bombardment card. This allows them to attack a zone occupied by 3 enemy units up to 3 zones away from a zone with one of their cannon pieces, and they roll 4 dice. We see that they will be firing at the walled area with the 2 wall markers, which is 2 areas away. So they roll 4 dice, a 5 and a 6, 2 hits, and each hit removes a wall or resistance marker. Now the area can be entered by Ottoman units. But to do so, they have to also play a card. They play an attack card. It allows them to move their infantry 2 movement points and initiate combat. They move into the open space in front of the walls, and before they continue, the Spanish announce that they will be reacting with their arquebusier units in the adjacent walled area. That is by playing an arquebusier's reaction card. This allows the Spanish to fire at the advancing Turks, and we take into account the height difference and the arquebusier's +1 to hit bonus, which you see printed on the bottom right-hand corner of their blocks. So it's 6 dice +1 for the bonus and +1 for the height advantage. Roll 4 dice, a total of 4 hits. The Ottomans can distribute the hits, and they do that evenly. So each of their blocks takes 2 hits. The Ottomans still have 1 movement point, and when they're about to move, the Spanish announce another reaction. They play a friendly fire reaction card. We roll 2 dice for each enemy unit that has moved into the Ottoman artillery's line of fire. Both Asab units are in the Ottoman artillery unit's line of fire, so we roll 2 dice for each. The topmost unit, a 1 and a 3, no effect. The bottom unit, on the other hand, rolls a 2 and a 5. The 5 is a hit, so it absorbs the hit. And now, finally, the Asab units can move their last movement point, and they enter the breached wall area. Now we resolve the combat, and each side can play 1 or more combat cards. Each side selects 1 combat card. Now we reveal the blocks to each side. The Spanish have a full-strength pikeman unit. The combat cards and the Turkish side fire devices, and the Spanish played a mine card. The effects take place simultaneously, so fire devices allows the Turks to roll 3 dice on a zone that has a wall. Only 1-5, 1 hit, and the pikemen are reduced to a strength of 2. Now we take into effect the Spanish combat event mine. Because this is a wall space, they roll 4 dice, and also 1 hit. That reduces the 2 strength Asab unit to 1. And now we resolve combat. We have pikemen and infantry, so all rolls are considered simultaneous. We roll for the Turks first, we roll 2 dice, no hits. Now we roll 2 dice for the pikemen. The 5 is a hit, so the Spanish win the battle. The Turks suffer 1 loss, so they eliminate 1 of their Asab units, and the other one has to retreat, and it retreats back to the area it came from. That's the open area in front of the arquebusiers, which were activated, so they fire again. They roll 6 dice with a +2. They wipe out the retreating Turks. Because the Turks lost 2 units, we advanced the Turkish casualty marker from 0 to 2. Take a look at some of the other cards that we haven't seen yet in this video. The Spanish have 1 bishop card, and this allows them to restore 3 strength points among their units, as shown here. The Spanish also have a repairs card, and with the card they can restore 2 lost resistance points of their walls or bastions. The Spanish also have a Chevaux de Frise combat card. During combat, this allows them to place a Chevaux de Frise cube in the area, and that cube will absorb 1 combat loss. And the Spanish have this card, the Camisado. It is a special attack. This card can be used as a regular attack card, but it can be used to perform this special Camisado attack, which allows the Spanish player to attack a zone which is up to 2 areas away without moving any units, and with a +2 to hit bonus. The Spanish player deals damage first and designates the Ottoman units to take the hits, but he cannot play any combat cards. And we see 2 Spanish units in a mountainous area, and they will be attacking through a Camisado attack a group of 3 Ottoman units, which is 2 areas away. So we roll 6 dice, we add the +2 bonus, a total of 5 hits. The Spanish player gets to distribute the hits. And here we see that the Turks have a Janissary with a strength of 2, so they apply 2 hits to that Janissary unit, eliminating it, and the other 3 hits to the other Janissary unit that has a strength of 3. So in this attack, they eliminate 2 units, and it is after the Turks sustain these casualties that the surviving Assab unit can fire back. Both sides have march cards, which allows them to move their units, mainly their infantry units, 4 movement points, but they cannot initiate any combat. But note that the Turks can also use this card, alternatively, for trench points or to move or deploy a battery. If they use it for trench points, they could place a trench into clear terrain spaces where they have their units. The Ottomans have the For the Faith card, which gives Assab units a +1 to hit, with the downside that at the end of combat, they have to sustain 3 losses. And they also have this Volley combat card, which increases the to hit of Janissary units by 1. Finally, the game includes this Storm event card. Once the Turkish player draws this card, it is immediately played and he draws a new card. And depending during whose action phase this card was drawn, that player cannot play the Fire Devices, Bombardment, Volley, Arquebusier, or Mines card. This is Castelnuovo 1539, a game designed by Francisco Ronco to be published by Draco Ideas through an upcoming Kickstarter campaign. I hope that this video has given you a good idea of the flow of the game and what the game has to offer. This is Stuka Joe, signing off for now. Thanks for watching.